So my room again, where I prop up my phone, my computer, my chair. Okay. One take. Please, one take. Okay. Everyone remembers COVID. Being trapped in your room, stuck in your room, sleeping late, waking up late, going to your online classes and paying zero attention. Most people fall into two categories. Either you binge watch your shows, or you grind video games all day and night with your friends. Now personally, I fell into category 2. Now the game I used to play all the time is called Sea of Thieves. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's pretty obvious. It's a game about being a pirate in a sea. Now my many hours in this game, I saw many things, from sea creatures to giant sea monsters. But there was always one sea monster that scared me the most: the Kraken. Now the Kraken would grab a hold of your ship no matter its size, and there was pretty big ships. It would turn the sea around you black with ink, and the music would go from a nice sea chanty with your friends to a terrifying boss-like music. Now, in this presentation, I'll be going over the Kraken. I'll first start off with some brief backstory on it, then I'll go over why people were so terrified of it, why the people in Norway were so terrified of it, any accounts and witnesses, and lastly, a real life Kraken that exists in our waters today. Now, to start off with some brief backstory. The Kraken is said to be a giant squid, towering even the biggest of ships back then, and having so much strength that it could take those ships from the top of the ocean and drag them down, breaking them on the way down. It is said to inhabit the waters of Norway and be similar to a cephalopod. Now, as for where its origins come from, where it first started, it is said to be from sailor superstition. Some sailors saw something so terrifying, so scary to them, that it made them make exaggerated accounts on a squid that could drag ships from the top of the water to the bottom. Now, as for the first accounts on the Kraken, it is said to be made by a man called Francisco Negri, which was later then expanded on by a man called Hans Egede, who went into detail saying how massive it was and how it had so much strength to swallow ships whole to the bottom of the sea. But the real credit goes to a man called Erik Pontoppidan. Now, Erik Pontoppidan was a Danish author and, most importantly, a man from Norway, which gave him a lot of credibility towards being somebody who actually saw and could write about the Kraken. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why were people so scared of the Kraken? If I already named 3 people who wrote on the Kraken, you think people would know where to avoid, what to do, and how to act if they encountered the Kraken. Well, asking people back then why they were scared of the Kraken is like asking people nowadays, why are you scared of death? They just were. It was common sense. But the real reason is their deep-seated fear of the unknown waters and of the unknown ocean. Back then, oceans were unmapped, unknown. So, the idea of a sea monster being out there was not very far-fetched to them. Now, was the Kraken even actually real? Through so many accounts and witnesses and stories, was there anybody who actually saw it, who actually encountered it, who could actually come back alive from it? Well, you would think there would be, but through my much research and search, I never actually find any definitive evidence that the Kraken actually existed. But what I could tell you is that many people back then did believe deeply in this, and many people do still nowadays. But the only thing I could really find is that people back then probably exaggerated the Kraken for the giant squid. Now, there is one case though. In the 1300s, there is said to be a sailor who saw a giant tentacle rise up from the bottom of the ocean and grab a ship, dragging it down to the bottom. Now, while this might sound convincing back then, nowadays through so many stories alike, it really isn't. Now, as I go back to the giant squid. Back then, as I said in the beginning of the presentation, I would talk about it in the middle. The giant squid is said to be an exaggerated version of the kraken. First discovered in 1925 and named, it is rarely seen by humans and only seen in lucky deep sea diving expeditions or some that have washed up to the shore and died. Now, while this creature might seem similar to a kraken, it really is far in difference. But don't be misunderstood. These things have an average length of 33 to 43 feet, with the largest thought one being 63 feet long. That is as large as a school bus nowadays. So it is pretty easy to think how this thing could grab a hold of a tiny fish boat and scare the living crap out of people. Now, as you can see in this image, it is pretty easy to think how these peaceful sailors could see this giant squid grabbing a hold of their boat, maybe for safety from a predator, and think it was trying to drown them, when really it's just a squid trying to find some safety. Now, as I wrap up this presentation, let me go over some quick points. First, we went over the brief backstory of the kraken. Secondly, we talked about why people were so scared of the kraken and how this terrifying monster was turned to folklore. And third, we talked about how the kraken was really just an exaggerated version of the giant squid. Now, to expand on those points, the first sightings by Eric Pontoppidan were really just his first sightings of the giant squid. And the second point, the reason people were so scared of the ocean and the kraken was really just their deep-seated fear of the ocean. And third, the giant squid is really just the exaggerated version of the kraken. So remember, the giant squid can grow up to be 43 feet long, with the longest one being 63 feet, and the ocean is only 5% explored. So, don't put it past you to think there's even bigger squids out there. So if you're ever out at sea and feel something grab you, you might have just discovered a new giant squid.